Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Namaduhu wa nasalli ala Rasulih al-Kareem. Continuing with verse 14 of Surah Al-E-Imran, the translation is, Fear in the eyes of all men is the love of things they desire, women and sons, heaped up hoards of gold and silver, horses branded for blood and excellence, and the wealth of cattle, the well-tilled land. Such are the possessions of this world's life, but in nearness to Allah is the best of the goals to return to. Notice one very important theme in the Quran, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions or compares the two lives, the life of this world, which the Quran calls the hayat dunya, and the life that is to come after death, which is the life called akhirah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that these things that attract people, most people in this world are attracted by the material things of this life. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds mankind that the best is the nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because the reward that will follow, the reward that will start for the righteous will never end, while the reward of the people who pursue this life will end at the time of the death. So this is a constant theme of the Quran, to be focused on the life that is to come. And to achieve the success of that life, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given guidelines, has given guidance as to what will achieve success in that life. Success of that life will depend upon how a person spends these years on this earth. This is a very important reminder for all mankind, that one should not be fooled, deceived by the tricks of shaitan, the devil, who keeps focusing attention of the people to the material success of this life, while this success is very, very short, very temporary. In verse 15, it goes on to say, shall I give you glad tidings of things far better than those? For the righteous are gardens in nearness to their Lord, with rivers flowing beneath. Therein is their eternal home, with companions pure and holy, and the good pleasure of Allah, and in Allah's sight are all His servants. So this is Allah's way of giving a reminder to mankind that this is true success. The success that will come, but this will come only to those people who are righteous, those people who believe in Allah, who believe in the promises of Allah, and those people who obey the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Verse 16, namely, those who say, Our Lord, we have indeed believed. Forgive us then our sins and save us from the agony of the fire. Once again, this is a reference to the life to come, the pleasures of the life and the agony of that. So there are only two places. Once a person leaves this world, this temporary world, he will have there are only two places. One is called Jahannam, which is hell, and the other one is called Jannah, which is paradise. One is a place of pain and suffering, and the other place is a place of pleasure. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us the guidance as to who will achieve the success. This is people who have believed, who seek Allah's forgiveness, and who are asking Allah for protection against the fire. Verse 17 goes on to say, those who show patience, firmness, and self-control, who are true in word and deed, who worship devoutly, who spend in the way of Allah, who pray for forgiveness in the early hours of the morning. This verse tells us that patience is very important, because a person may get tired of worshipping. He may get tired of obedience to Allah. because the world is very attractive. He seems the shaitan keeps taking him away from the path of righteousness. So in order to be patient, one has to have a lot of faith, a lot of iman, and a lot of self-control. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put pleasure in sin. A sinful life is a pleasurable life, while a life of righteousness requires a lot of self-control. Like in the case of praying 5 times a day, every day requires a lot of patience. It requires a lot of self-control. It requires a lot of discipline. A person who does not have patience, he will not be able to remain firm. He will not be able to stick to that schedule. So this is a big test. Every day a person gets up and starts his devotion to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the early hours of the morning. It requires a lot of iman, a lot of faith. Most people have given up this practice of praying because they do not have patience. People want to see results, immediate results. They want to see the results of their actions. But in the case of salat, in the case of deeds that Allah has decreed, like fasting in the month of Ramadan, they require patience, self-control, staying away from sin. The best ibadah, it is said, the best worship is to stay away from those things that are prohibited. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed limits. And if a person remains within the limits placed by Allah, what they call the hudud of Allah, then the person is showing patience, he's showing self-control, he's showing firmness. So this ayat of the Quran reminds people that patience is very important in this path. We ask Allah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us that patience to remain steadfast, because a lot of people start in the right direction, but due to lack of patience, they give up that practice. They give up the firmness, and then they fall into the trap of the shaitan, the devil. Verse 18 goes on to say, there is no God but He that is the witness of Allah, His angels, and those endued with knowledge, standing firm on justice. There is no God but He, the exalted in power and wise. This is another very important theme of the Quran that is stressed again and again, that we tend to worship powers or deities or gods who do not have the power, but it seems they have the power. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keeps reminding people that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone is the one that is in complete control. He gives power, He gives control to people just for the purpose of testing them. But He can take that power away anytime He wants. Or people are fooled, deceived by the powers that they see. This is only as a test from Allah. The real power, Allah says, belongs to Him. And Allah is a witness to that. And so are the angels and those who have firm faith, who have knowledge. And verse 19 is the verse that tells mankind that the only religion acceptable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Islam. Islam means submission to Allah. So the translation of verse 19 is, the religion before Allah is Islam. Nor did the people of the book dissent therefrom, except through envy of each other, after knowledge had come to them. But if any deny the signs of Allah, Allah is swift in calling to account. This verse tells us about the only acceptable religion from the time of Adam alayhi salam to the end of times. The only acceptable religion is Islam, which is submission to Allah. And all the prophets, starting from Adam alayhi salam, the first prophet, to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the last prophet, all of them preached Islam. They're all prophets of Islam. The only religion they came with is Islam. So the question sometimes people ask is why there are so many religions in the world. if Islam is the only religion. And the answer is very simple. There are so many religions in the world because people have come up with their own ideas, their own philosophies, their own theologies, and a lot of people have been misled by that. These are all tricks of shaitan, that he takes people away from the path of the truth. And the Quran reminds people, the people will be questioned on the day of judgment. The Quran will be a witness that this was mentioned in the Quran very clearly. This verse mentions it very clearly, that the only religion that Allah accepts or will accept is Islam. And Islam is not a new religion that started 1400 years ago. Islam has always been there and will always be there till the end of times. So anyone who wishes to come to Allah, to the Creator, to the sustainer of this universe, will have to come through this way. And the people in the past who were successful were the ones who believed in the prophets of that time, who followed the books of that time, who followed the laws of that time. The laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have always been there. And they will always be there. So people who follow those laws, obey the prophet of that time, will be following the true path, which is the path of Islam. Verse 20 goes on to say, so if they dispute with you, that is with the Prophet ﷺ, say, I have submitted my whole self to Allah, and so have those who follow me, and say to the people of the book, and to those who are unlearned, do you also submit yourselves? If they do, they are in right guidance. But if they turn back, your duty is to convey the message, and in Allah's sight are all His servants. This verse reminds the believers to convey the message so that no one can say on the day of judgment that we didn't know the message. So the Quran now is all available to all mankind. People cannot say to Allah on the day of judgment, oh Allah, we were not aware of this. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us a system, has told us what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. We have to be very vigilant about this. It's not a small matter. It's a matter of eternity. Muslims have a responsibility to convey the message. As this verse says, your duty is to convey the message. And in Allah's sight are all His servants. So if people do not accept the message, that is up to them. But the important thing for believers is to deliver the message so they can be witnesses on the day of judgment and testify and say, Allah, you are a witness. We did our job. We conveyed the message. And the people rejected it. And they will then be questioned why they rejected it. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us the complete picture of what's going to happen. People will have to give account. This life is not a joke. It's not created for jest. It's not created for pleasure. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not create this life for a few years of pleasure. Human beings are very important in the sight of Allah. This is the best of Allah's creation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not create life and death just that people can enjoy for a few years and die and then be forgotten. We know from experience, from history, that prophets who came and delivered the message to people of that time, and they were rejected by the people, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala punished those people and made them an example for posterity. And the people who obeyed them, who followed the prophets, were successful, as in the case of the companions of Rasulullah. They did their responsibility, they did their job very faithfully. They delivered the message to mankind, to all the people they came in contact with. And on the day of judgment, they will be able to testify and say, Allah, we did our job, we conveyed the message. We don't know what happened after us. As far as we are concerned, we did what we were supposed to do. And this is what the believers are supposed to do. They are supposed to give the message, and it is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to call them to account. In verse 21, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, as to those who deny the signs of Allah and in defiance of right, slay the prophets and slay those who teach just dealing with mankind, announce to them a grievous penalty. We know from history that some prophets were killed, and we know from history many people who conveyed the message were killed by the people, like the person who was mentioned in Surah Yasin, who told the people of that time to listen to the prophets who had been sent by Allah, and he was killed. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned this person in Surah Yasin, which is considered to be the heart of the Quran, that Allah was so pleased with this person because he told the people, he gave the message to listen to the prophets of that time. So he did the most important thing. And we know from history, we know from the past that people who speak the truth, sometimes they are dealt with very severely. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning in this verse that those people who are an obstacle in the path, who create problems for such people, announce to them a grievous penalty. In verse 22, it says, they are those whose works will bear no fruit in this world and in the hereafter, nor will they have anyone to help. So this is a warning to those people who deny the truth, who deny the reality, and who think they are successful. But in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they are losers, and they will suffer. And we know again from history that such people who have opposed the truth, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala punished them in this world. And the big punishment will come in the next life. This is a verse that gives a warning to those. It says, those whose works will bear no fruit in this world and in the hereafter, nor will they have anyone to help. People should pay attention to such verses in the Quran. The promises of Allah are true. In verse 23, have you not turned your vision to those who have been given a portion of the book? They are invited to the book of Allah to settle their dispute, but a party of them turn back and decline the arbitration. So people in the past were given revelation, the prophets of previous times, like Isa alayhi salam, Jesus, and Musa alayhi salam, Moses, and Ibrahim alayhi salam, Dawud alayhi salam, David and Abraham. They were given revelation, and they will be judged from the standards that were relevant at that time. But now, till the day of judgment, the laws that are applicable, the laws that will apply, are the laws that are given in the Quran. So these people have to settle their disputes according to the laws that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed. In verse 24, it goes on to say, this is because they say, the fire shall not touch us but for a few numbered days, for their forgeries deceive them as to their own religion. So this is a reference to the people who were given the books in the past, but they declined, they refused to accept the Quran, and they followed their own ways, they followed their own leaders, religious leaders, preachers, and left the true path of Islam and brought destruction upon themselves. Verse 25 goes on to say, but how will they fare when we gather them together against a day about which there is no doubt, and each soul shall be paid just what it has earned without favor or injustice. Just think, reflect on this verse of the Quran, that people will be given what they have earned. There'll be perfect justice. So To think that one will be saved, one will be successful, one will go to Jannah, paradise, just by saying that I believe is not enough. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions this and mentioned many times. So there is no doubt about it, that there is no doubt about a day that is going to come. This is a certainty. The day, tomorrow is uncertain. It may not, it may come, it may not. But the day of judgment is certain. Why? Because Allah has promised that. And those who believe in the promises of Allah are the true believers. And then it says, each soul shall be paid just what it has earned. So one has to earn it. It is true that even with all the best of deeds, one still needs the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is true, that the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the basis. But at the same time, just to think that I can do what I like, there are no laws to be obeyed, and I will qualify without any deed and without any iman, that is a deception from the shaitan. That is a trick of the shaitan to make people believe that they don't have to do anything. We know in this world, Allah has given us examples in this world that in order to achieve something, you have to qualify, you have to come to certain standards. This is only to show this principle that paradise is not free. Paradise, one has to work for it. No soul shall be paid, and each soul shall be paid just what it has earned, without favor or injustice. So there's perfect justice. We know in this life, there's no justice, or you cannot say there is perfect justice. How many times we see people are treated unjustly, and the ones who are inflicting injustice, they get away with it. But on the day of judgment, this will not happen. This is a reminder from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that a day is coming where perfect justice will be done. So believers, people who are suffering in this life, should not think that this is the end of the matter. The real decision, the real accounting will be done on that day when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will do perfect justice. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the proper understanding of the Quran and also help us to follow in the footsteps of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Wa akhirat dawana in alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.